Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Harriet. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a January reading wrap-up. I'm going to change the way that I do my wrap-ups because I feel like a lot of the times I'm talking about books that I've already done reviews for or that I'm planning to do separate reviews for in the future. So it just feels like I'm talking about the same thing over and over again, and I don't want to do that. I also feel like sometimes I end up talking about books that I find mediocre or very middle ground without talking about the books that really strike happiness into my heart, that I really enjoyed, or ones that maybe disappointed me. So I think this year I'm going to trial out just talking about books that either really surprised me or that I really enjoyed, that I recommend, and then the books that let me down, although you'll probably find that I'm going to end up doing separate reviews for those anyway. I don't know, it just feels a bit strange talking about books that maybe didn't blow me away. So for example, this month I'm going to talk about 3 books that I really enjoyed. I didn't actually have any books that I disliked this month, and I ended up reading 10 books, which definitely wasn't what I was meant to be doing. I'm meant to be taking it slow with my reading. It's not that I was rushing through them or anything, I just ended up reading quite a lot because a lot of these books were under 400 pages long. Saying that, quite a few of them were over that as well. So yeah, I'm shocked that I read 10 books when my goal for the year is to read 50. I'm already way ahead of schedule there, but at least I can take it a bit slower during the rest of the months of the year, possibly. That's another point with me not necessarily talking about every single book that I have read on this channel, because I feel like then it's a numbers game and I'm almost battling with myself to try and read a certain amount of books a month, and I don't want to do that. I want my relationship with reading and books to be very pure, me just enjoying the books, enjoying stories, or not enjoying them and then ranting about them to you guys. Anyway, enough of my babbling, let's talk about my 3 favourite books from the month of January. So the first one I want to talk about is actually part of a series, and I read 3 of the books from the series within a month. Started in December and then went through to January, but obviously I can't really talk about the second and third books without mentioning the first one. So technically this is cheating, but I'm going to talk about The Iron King by Maurice Druon. This is a book that is inspired by genuine events that happened. So it's historical fiction, and it's been described as the first ever Game of Thrones. Personally, I don't really understand where that statement has come from. I know it has come from George R.R. Martin himself. I have read the A Song of Ice and Fire series. I wouldn't say this is that similar. I would say that it has got the political intrigue and it has got different families and factions, and they're all fighting amongst themselves. There's a lot of drama, there's a lot of treachery, betrayal. However, besides that, there's not really anything that the series have in common. This is not fantasy. It has got some elements of, I suppose, magic, but it's more steeped in science, in the fact that it is like poisons and potions and using herbs and natural resources as opposed to dragons like in A Game of Thrones. But yeah, if you're a big fan of historical fiction and you want something that's very politically driven, lots of drama, then I do recommend picking up the series. I don't have all of the books, I just have the first 3, which is why I read them, and I just didn't want to put them down. They're also a very nice length, they're not too long, and this was originally written in French and it's been translated. I didn't find that there was really any difference in the translation. I know sometimes, especially with, for example, a lot of Japanese literature that I've read, sometimes the storytelling can feel quite choppy just because of the way that it's been translated and the difference in storytelling, but I didn't find a difference with this one personally. So yeah, definitely recommend this series. And that's coming from someone that is interested in history but doesn't necessarily always like reading about it. I really, really liked that book. The next book that I want to talk about, I think I'm going to do a separate review for, so let me know down below if you'd be interested in that, but it is The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. This book has been spoken about quite a lot on BookTube and on Bookstagram, and it has been hyped up for a couple of years ever since it came out. I believe this was originally self-published, and it got picked up by a publisher, and I ended up getting this gorgeous edition. I could just tell from the synopsis that I was probably going to like this. It is a dark academia, dark fantasy book following various different characters who get taken into this almost elite school or academy, and they're basically told that they are allowed to research using books and literature that they wouldn't usually have access to, almost like a magical archive. And in this place they can hone in on their magical abilities. Each person has a different ability, and I found it very interesting to see how they put their abilities to use, whether they're using it for good or bad. But the main thing that struck me about this book is the author's ability to write genuine relationships and genuine reactions to things. Every single character in this book for me felt so realistic, and the way they communicated with each other really made me feel like they genuinely existed, which then made me feel very emotionally attached, and I got very invested in this novel. There are a couple of things that happen in here that just made me never want to put this book down. It was so intense. There is a lot of tension in here for sure. Again, there is a lot of deceit, but there is also a little hint of romance. And it's just such a great book. I've really been into this style of book recently, really been into dark academia. I didn't used to understand the hype hype, but that was actually before I'd tried any. So I do totally get it now, and I'm looking forward to trying some more in the future. I do have the second book, The Atlas Paradox, on my TBR, which I'm going to aim to read this year. But this was spectacular. I really loved reading this, and I'd recommend it to anyone that's looking for this kind of book. If you want something a little bit moody, a little bit magical, then this will be the one for you. And then the third book that I'd like to talk about is actually the last book that I read in January, and that is Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. I hope I'm saying that name right. I feel like most people know Fight Club from the movie that came out, but if you didn't know the storyline, we're following our main character who meets this person called Tyler, and it's about their interactions with each other when they start this thing called Fight Club, which I know technically I'm not allowed to talk about, but essentially lots of men meet up and fight with each other, and it's almost like a way of them expressing themselves, I suppose, and getting out aggression, getting out all of those horrible feelings that they're feeling because they're working a 9-to-5 job, or they're very stressed out, they've got things going on in their lives. It's a really strange concept, but the actual story that's going on in the background of this, which I'm not going to talk about because it will be spoilers, that is what made me absolutely love this book. I just found it a very interesting character study. I really enjoyed all the characters in this book. I suppose our main character is a little bit untrustworthy in the way that he is telling the story. You don't know whether to believe what's happening or whether things are happening inside his head. It's hard to know, but definitely a good one for people that like mild thrillers, that are interested in maybe psychological books, character study books. I had a lot of fun with it, much more fun than what I honestly thought I would have with it, and I have recently rewatched the film as well, so that was really good. But I do totally understand why this is a classic. I loved it. So those are the main 3 books that I really enjoyed this month. I'm going to leave a couple on the screen as honourable mentions, show you the other books that I read in the month of January. Please let me know down below if you read any of these and what you thought to them. But that is everything from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!